Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Week 4 of the Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, a box office numbers. Emotional warning, right? So there's spoiler warnings. There's no spoilers for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves in this, but there are, this is an emotional warning in that if you're trying to keep your energy high today, if you're, if you got a pip pop in your step and you're happy, you don't want to watch this because this is nothing but sad. There ain't nothing but sad juice in this cup. And just want to give you a warning of that. Let's go. All right. Week 4. We know the domestic number for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves in Week 4. $5 million domestic. We think the entire movie, 4 weeks out, has made $177 million. Which is not even enough. It's enough to cover the budget, but not even remotely covers the 100 to an additional 100. The movie probably costs between $250 and $300 million if you count marketing and everything, right? And it's not even hitting 200. So there's no way it's even made its money back. Today, a successful, not even a blockbuster, but a successful movie is expected to make triple its initial budget. So this movie should be at $450 million right now to be considered a commercial success. Right now it's at $177 million. It has made back its budget and about $25 million on top of that, right? It's actually specifically $27 million on top of that. But there's $125 million of marketing that is not going to get paid back. So this movie is not a successful film. And any studio that picks up Dungeons & Dragons to finish this franchise or start a new franchise has the very hard reality that they will almost certainly not make their budget back. Right? They will not make their budget and marketing back. And no company does that. They want triple profit. They want triple just the budget. Not even, you can skip the marketing. They want triple the budget. This needed to make $450 million. Period. End of sentence. And it didn't. It is a complete catastrophic commercial failure. It is a critical success, but it is a commercial failure. And so in Week 4, it made $5 million domestic. It probably made between like 5 and 8 more million internationally. But here's the biggest headline out of Week 4. Grace Randolph said this. She said, Dungeons & Dragons is done. I agree with her. I think, from here it's just dregs. It was number 6 in Week 4, right? Should be still be number 1, maybe number 2 or number 3. It's number 6, and it was getting beat out by, like, Evil Dead Rise. Like, whatever. It should not be competing with super low budget horror films. That's not a good place for it to be. It's a blockbuster, right? It was intended to be a blockbuster. So this is absolutely horrible news. And here's what Grace Randolph said: it's finished, and it won't even make $100 million domestic. That is catastrophically bad. The fact that it couldn't even do $100 million domestically with incredibly good reviews, incredibly good word of mouth, and it's just absolutely decimated, right? So let's look at the reasons why this happened. I want to dig deeper, okay? And let's explore the reasons why. Number one reason that this movie failed was the D&D Be Gone shouters, who boycotted the film and encouraged others not to see the film. And D&D Be Gone, in my opinion, is 90%. Every single person who ever shouted D&D Be Gone or gave support to anyone connected to any of the groups that were using the D&D Be Gone hashtag are 90% responsible for the failure of this movie. That leaves 10%. So let's look at... So I've already gone into that in depth. I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm not going to drill down on that. I've already said it, right? So let's look at 10% of the reasons where... And by the way, I don't think there's anything that Hasbro could have done to fix that. And the reason why is I actually think, in my humble opinion, the 2023 OGL crisis was 100% the problem of the D&D Be Goners overreacting and being unfair to Hasbro. I don't think Hasbro made a single misstep with the OGL. I think they had every right to change it. I think their plan to change it was perfectly communicated. And I think everything that happened was all on the side of the D&D Be Gone shouters. All the problems were with the D&D Be Gone shouters. And the other thing is that we know is this is never going to get fixed. There's always going to be a next group that comes to try to destroy Dungeons and Dragons and literally wipe it off the face of the earth and burn the books physically and or digitally, right? It's all 1983, literal physical, like 1983 Satanic Panic, physical burning of books. 2023 Manic Panic, digital burning of Dungeons and Dragons books. Both groups shouting D&D be gone, right? It's just, that's 90% of the problem. But there's 10%, and I don't think Hasbro could have done a thing to stop that. There's just always going to be zealots who come to destroy Dungeons and Dragons. We know it. We stand on the wall. We sentinel for Dungeons and Dragons, and we try to protect it. That's all we can do, right? And the reality is, Hasbro did nothing wrong in the OGL crisis. That's my humble opinion, right? Let's move on. Let's talk about 3 things that could have been changed, could have been managed, right? One, there's a terrible, terrible problem that we have to acknowledge, and that is the D&D brand name itself. It is still, in the American eyes, 1980s nerd stuff, and it has not shaken that brutal, unfair, horrible pigeonholing and stereotyping. It is just catastrophically bad, and it's terrible, it's horrible, but we have not shaken that 1980s stereotype of Dungeons and Dragons as nerd stuff. Okay, that's terrible, it's horrible, but it's a reality, right? And I don't know if we can do anything to shake that off, right? The nerd stuff sticker is firmly, it's duct taped to Dungeons and Dragons forehead, and that's tough. That's really tough, right? The second one is the game itself, right? So Dungeons and Dragons itself. When people come to it, right, and they get, and like, okay, you might play a month with the starter box, right? But as soon as anybody at the table says, I'm going to become a real dungeon master, it is horrific what they face. They face 3 books, 256 pages each, right? You and me, that's nothing, right? I have 2 degrees, you have 3 degrees, whatever, right? We eat books for like potato chips, right? But the vast majority of Americans don't really read that much. So to say minimum bid to be a dungeon master is 750 pages of reading, the PHB, the DMG, and the Monster Manual, with literally 7,250 pages of canon after that, right? And saying if you really want to be a dungeon master, you're really looking at 8,000 pages of canon for the current edition alone is outrageously intellectually elitist. And so right now, in its current shape, Dungeons & Dragons is horribly intellectually elitist, right? What we actually need is we need elegant, simple, fast rules. And that would mean that the DMG, the PHB, and the Monster Manual literally all fit in a 99-page book. There's zero interest in doing this, zero commitment to do this, which means that Dungeons & Dragons remains as an intellectual elite activity. And we cannot fix that. The last is the casting, right? These were really good, incredibly capable stars that were cast for the movie, but they weren't blockbuster to the last, right? So what could you have done to cast this better, right? And the problem is there's only a 1% chance that this would have worked, but there's a 1% chance that with the casting I'm about to mention, it would have drawn millions and millions more and could have burst through the obstacles, right? And I do believe that a powerful Hollywood person can skyrocket, catapult a film forward and could have fixed these problems. So here's how you could have actually cast this to make it a $1 billion film, right? If you would put Ryan Gosling as Zank Yendar, if you would put Jennifer Lawrence as Holga Kilgore, if you had put Emma Stone as Doric, and if you had put Tom Cruise as Edgin, that's it. That would have been a $1 billion film, right? Like it would have been $1 billion, could have been $1 billion, it would have been $1 billion guaranteed, could have been $2 billion, could have been the first movie ever to do $3 billion, right? So there is a casting that would have catapulted this. Would have given a 1% chance of catapulting this to the moon, and there are legit Tom Cruise proved it. He did a billion. I think he did like $1.2 billion with Maverick just last year, right? With Top Gun Maverick, and honestly, I think Tom Cruise alone could have put $1 billion on this, and then Jennifer Lawrence could have just people getting excited to see her again could have been $500 million more. Ryan Gosling's worth $200 million, and Emma Stone is worth $400 million. That would have been $2.1 billion. So there is a casting that would have got us all the way there. And so it is just terribly, terribly sad. But those last, so there's 4 reasons the D&D movie failed. First one is the D&D Be Goners, 90% of the problem. I think 5% of the problem is D&D's reputation. 3% of the problem was we don't have an elegant, fast rule system that is inviting to non-intellectuals. And then last is casting. I think could have been cast better. I honestly, I don't hold Hasbro's feet to the fire on any of this. I really feel this was a very genuine attempt. I think you could not have beat this script. This was an unbelievable script, and you could not have beat Daly and Goldstein for the directors. And so the writing and the directing on this was phenomenal. You could have cast this to put more butts in the seats. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.